Hello everybody, this is BeastCat100 and welcome back to some more Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Turnabout Trump. In the previous episode, what did we do last episode? Oh yeah, we broke Olga Orly, found out the truth of what happened, and it seems that there actually was a fourth person in the restaurant that night. Phoenix has something to show us, and it's time we stop keeping him waiting. If you like what you see, leave a like down below, comment if you have anything to say, subscribe to me if you haven't already, and share with your friends that can join in on this trial. Let's get started. Now that we're all here, I see no reason why I shouldn't play it back for the court. Kristoff, I seem to be in a bit of trouble. Let's see. What's this? Game not going well? Something like that. That gentleman who challenged you, he turned out to be good? He turned out to be dead. Someone hit him. Hard. You mean someone cracked that flawless bone china pate? It wasn't you, was it? Me? Please, the cops should be here any minute. I'm in your hands. Should have come to that. Bone china plate? Kind of porcelain, very smooth and shiny. And not plate, but pate. I believe he was referring to a certain gentleman's balding forehead.
The court picture to defend this discussion. I'm not looking at my forehead.
Wait a second. Something's not right about that phone call. So after Mr. Gavin ate dinner with you, he left the Borscht Bowl Club. Most certainly. Then, how did he know? When did he see this bone china pate?
Oh, that's right.
Yes. That was when I began to see my good friend in a different light. Troubled, I returned to the crime scene, and when I spotted Mr. Smith's head again, I realized exactly what was wrong. Well, Mr. Gavin, the stage has been set. Perhaps you would like to explain this to the court. Exactly how did you come by your privileged knowledge of the victim's head? So, this is your reason. The reason why you put the victim's hat back on. Your point, Mr. Gavin? It's come down to this, hasn't it, Phoenix Wright?
Order. I will have order, Mr. Payne.
Yes, Your Honor.
I believe the court has been left with no other choice. Are you prepared to hear the first Tony Gavin's testimony?
Well, as a prosecutor,
Very well, so I'll break for 10 minutes. After which Mr. Gavin will take the stand for a cross-examination. Are we all clear on that?
Crystal clear, Your Honor.
Very well, this will be the final whistle for the day.
The 20th, 2:32 p.m. District Court, Defendant Lobby Number 3. Apollo and Mr. Gavin and Mr. Wright are both in the judge's chamber. Who'd have thought today would turn out like this? May I? Oh. I don't think we have a voice sample for her. What? Hello, sir. Please, pick a card. What's all this about? Is this one okay? Excellent. I have a message for you. The last hand is about to be played. You need a trump card to make it. A trump card? This card you have chosen is magical. Use it wisely and the game is yours. That's all. An ace. Where do I remember that card from? 3 aces and 2 aces. 5 aces. A 5th ace. There was cheating. The missing 5th ace. Wait, this blotch of red. Is this blood? You have your trump card. Now it's up to you to cut the deck and draw the truth. My father's fate is in your hands. I know you can do it. This blood-stained card is my trump card for finding the truth? I fell deep into thought as my mind raced to understand what this all meant. That girl, I'd seen her recently, but where? That's when I made the connection. Bloody ace added to the court record. April 20th, 2:45 p.m. District Court, courtroom number 2.
What would I reconvene?
See from a mysterious girl. Could this be the missing 5th ace? A single drop of blood marks the front of the card. Nothing else. I don't think we ever checked the profiles either. Oh wait, maybe we have. Yeah, we have. Organ Orderly's 21. Professional swindler, hired by the victim to destroy Phoenix Wright's reputation.
If I tell you to get out of here, please get the stand. Well done, a few more, Mr. Payne.
Yes, Your Honor. Well, the witness, state his name and occupation. Is this farce necessary, Your Honor?
Believe me, frightening of things have gone on in this courtroom.
Fine, I'll play along.
There's one thing we didn't have made clear. What do you know about the statement we had in Mr. Smith's time?
By secret, I'm guessing he means the fact that Mr. Smith was bald. Forgive my curiosity, but what is it about this fellow's head? Your Honor seems to have an inordinate interest in it. I wouldn't call it inordinate, Mr. Gavin! Ah! They brought the music back! Ah! Yes! Mr. Wright! What do you think you're doing, Wright? Wow, certain things sure look different from the other side. You know what I mean, Apollo? Speaking of looking from the other side, let's consider something for a second. The victim wore that hat all night, never taking it off once, except for that one time. That one time being the instant he was hit.
Bull!
When Mr. Wright returned from reporting the crime, the hat was lying on the floor. Mr. Wright picked it up and placed it on the victim's head. In other words, in order to have seen Mr. Smith's bald head, you would have had to be at the scene of the crime, at the time of the crime. In other words, you'd have to be the real killer. Is that what you're trying to say? Not bad, Apollo.
Mr. Gavin?
I'm afraid that I haven't been entirely honest with the court. What? Oh, I assure you, I had the noblest of intentions. I did it all to protect my client, Mr. Wright. Yet I'm afraid that in the current situation, I see little reason to hide anything. Very well, allow me to tell you the truth of what happened that night.
Finally, you may begin to testimony. Tell us, how were we involved in the events of that fateful night?
The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window at the hideout. It must have been right after the murder took place. The victim was dead as he appeared in the photo. A bald head, unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. I sensed that was not the best place for me at the time, so I left. That's when the call came from Wright.
So you witnessed the murder?
For better or for worse, I missed the actual moment of the deed.
Mr. Gavin, may I remind you that you are Mr. Wright's defense team? You're the only clue that the verdict are required.
What else could I say? I'm standing on the witness stand after all. So you are Mr. Gavin. And you had to testify as you just did. You had to tell them you saw the scene of the crime through that little window. Mr. Wright? You had to say that because that was the only probable window of opportunity, right, Apollo? Oh!
Mr. Wright, the defense should do the cross-examination, not the defendant. Mr. Justice, are you prepared?
Yes, Your Honor. Can't believe I'm going up against Mr. Gavin. This trial is getting weirder and weirder. The rage I sensed that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window in the hideout. Hold it! The little window? You mean the one used to keep the watch up the stairs? Yes, a relic of the ancient past. The black marketeers used it, I believe. Why'd you go through the trouble of peeking in through the window? Wouldn't it have been easier just to open the door and go into the room? I didn't want to upset Wright, you see. Upset Mr. Wright? Yes. What if my fears had been unfounded? I've been walking in on their match. Bad form, to say the least. So far, everything he's saying makes sense. Must have been right after the murder took place. The victim was dead as he appears in the photo. Bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. I sensed that was not the best place for me at the time, so I left. That's when the call came from Wright. This is fun. I have a feeling. Nope. Alright, let's start pressing everything then. Why is the sound glitching out? There we go. That man, you mean Mr. Smith? He was different from the other customers. His aura, shall we say. I knew he was a serious poker player, but it was more than that.
So then you knew the true nature of your client's job!
Of course, but I also knew he wasn't engaged in gambling, which would be illegal. Well, it makes sense that he'd know. They were friends after all. Word from my friend, I returned to the club. You see, I feared this Mr. Smith might be someone coming to settle an old score.
I see. What happened then?
I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout. The little window? You mean the one used to keep watch up the stairs? Yes, a relic of... Oh wait, we already went through this. Must be right after the murder took place. Hold it! How do you know it was right after the murder? Really, no need to shout, Justice. Ugh. I was just getting to that part in my testimony. There he is, the coolest defense in the West we know and love. And when you're standing up there on the witness stand, some things never change. I was afraid you'd change too, Wright, but you haven't. You and that overbearing personality of yours. With friends like these, who needs enemies? The victim was dead as he appeared in the photo. Hold it! By photo, you mean the second photograph of the crime scene? Precisely. You see, he wasn't wearing his hat then. I saw his head, and when he was dead. And then Mr. Wright came along and replaced the hat. Can you describe the scene of the crime for us? A bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. Hold it! Those were the only three at the scene of the crime? Yes, as far as I saw at least. Then we're back where we started. The killer was the defendant, Mr. Wright, Phoenix Wright. Who else could it have been? But why didn't you talk to the police? 2 reasons. First, I didn't actually witness the very moment of the crime. Second, my office was just asked to defend Wright. After seeing what I had seen, I couldn't abandon my friend. There must have been someone else there at the moment of the crime. Justice, I just said I saw no one, not a soul. But that goes against what Mr. Wright said! Ah yes, this mysterious fourth person, who would conveniently be the real killer, I suppose. Glad to see we agree, Mr. Gavin. Let me pose a question, then. Tell me, what possible reason did the real killer have to swap the cards in the victim's hand? Perhaps you can show us a reason why this thing would be necessary? How could I show something I can't find myself? Remember, Apollo, the card that was swapped out was the 5th ace. The 5th ace, right.
Well, Mr. Doctor, the question of why the killer would swap out a card when raised. Can you point out the reason?
Yes and no? This seems... It's now or never. Defense would like to present evidence for the court. Evidence showing the reason why a card was swapped out.
Go ahead and point out the reason, Mr. Justice. Why did the killer take the 5th ace?
Oh god. This is not gonna be good. This is not gonna be good. Whatever. Take that! My reason is, this. Is that an ace?
Why? But it's got blood on it! Right next to the spade!
What? This is insane! Why wasn't I told about this? Why?
Could that be? Could it be the missing 5th ace?
Inconceivable. How could you... What are you doing with that card? Well, that's the thing. Why is Mr. Gavin so upset? It's just a fishy card from some fishy girl. Oh, that card? It's mine. That is, I picked it up at the Borscht Bowl Club that night after the murder had occurred. I gave it to my daughter. Cards are her stock in trade, after all. No! Impossible! Unacceptable! The court can't accept this evidence! It's a fraud! A fraud? How can you be so sure? What? I would think that the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene, the real killer. Allow me to elaborate. What if the trace of blood was the reason? The reason for the killer to take the card from the scene of the crime?
Where are you going with that?
Take another look at the photo, and at the victim's head. The moment of the crime, his hat fell to the floor, and a trickle of blood ran from his forehead down to the back of his head. Couldn't a drop of that blood have fallen on some of the cards? I suppose. The killer then took the card to hide the blood. Regardless, that evidence is non-permissible. Oh? Right, regardless of how you wasted the last 7 years you used to be a lawyer. You know what a serious crime that is to conceal evidence. Or we can discuss the finer points of our legal system later. What's important now is that I've answered your question. What are you talking about? You wanted to know why the killer would have taken a card from the crime scene. And now I've told you. The one drop of blood would have been decisive evidence, you see. This is baseless conjecture! Baseless! Oh, I assure you it's quite based. What? It's amazing, really. How a single drop of blood on a single card can lead us to the truth. It's quite simple. Well, Apollo? Yes? Try picturing the scene of the crime in your head. Oh, 3D! The murder took place in the hideout. The body of the luckless victim was found at the poker table. And before the killer swapped a card out, there was a single card with a drop of blood in the victim's hand. Given this, there's one decisive problem with this scene.
Well, what is it?
Let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on the card, whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses? Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card? It would be the victims. Because if you think about it, if you looked at the picture closely, the drop of blood went backwards on his head, not forwards. If it was in his hand, that would lead the belief that the victim would have been either facing forward, or the drop of blood would have dropped forward, and it didn't. Take that! Well, isn't the victim's position the problem?
I'm part of the water payment about this.
Well, look, the victim was struck on the head, sending him back in his chair. You think that any blood would fall behind the body, not on the table in front of him.
Oh!
Take a look at the photo again. If you bled in this position, the blood would fall on the floor, not on the cards.
Why, that's right. What does that mean?
Incidentally, we were sitting in swivel chairs. Swivel chairs? Oh, man. Apollo, try turning the chair around. Huh?
The chair was sitting the other way?
Okay, so for these touch things, I'm gonna need the mouse. It would have to be. So we have to assume that at the time of the murder, the victim's chair was facing away from the table.
I let the light come from reporting the police. Which way was the chair facing?
When I came back to the room, the body was facing as seen in this photo. That would mean the killer turned the chair back around. Let's take the next step. Look at the diagram once more. We know the victim was facing away from the table at the time of the murder. But this creates another significant contradiction. Again? Let's test your reasoning skills again, shall we? Paula, whose location on the diagram contradicts our new understanding of the crime? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses? If the victim was facing away from the scene of the crime, what did Gavin say? He said, whose location creates a contradiction if the victim was facing away? Gavin said bald forehead in the chair. Girl in the chair. Take that! The victim was struck from the front, correct? Indeed. Well, wouldn't it be hard for the killer to hit him from the front? Sitting where his indicator is located? I would think it would be quite hard, yes. Yes, but what you're saying makes no sense! Why would the victim suddenly turn to face a wall in the middle of the game? I believe a sufficient reason will soon come to light. What? There's something in this diagram that makes far less sense, actually. Look again. Paula, if the victim was struck while he was sitting as shown here, where would his assailant be standing? Try marking on the diagram. What? But there's no room to put a mark where the killer should be. Don't worry. Let's think it through and see what we find. We know the victim was facing towards the wall at the time of the crime. It's the only thing we know for sure. Try to forget about everything else. Where would the killer have to be standing to strike our victim? He would have to stand, like, in the wall. Take that! The killer had to be standing, well, here. You get points for flair, but that's about all you get. Thought it was onto something there, too. I hardly need to point out that standing there would be impossible. The victim is facing a solid cupboard. Or are you claiming the killer climbed the cupboard and hit him from above? Ha! It's simple logic, really. This was the only place the killer could have been standing. And that means that at the very moment of the crime... Wait, I know! At the moment of the crime, the cupboard wasn't there.
What the hell?
I mean, that's the only explanation. Right, Mr. Gavin? Your Honor, I have a suggestion for the defense. We should arrange to examine the cupboard in the hideout immediately.
Well, send your team to the crime scene immediately. Have them try to move the cover.
Your Honor?
What?
There's one more thing your men should look for. Please give this to the bailiff.
Yes, I see. You do belong to the courtroom, Mr. Ball, Mr. Wright.
I do my best. But let's forge ahead here while we wait. Let's look at the diagram again. It's been changed. The killer was standing here at the time of the crime. And this cupboard wasn't here. Which means... Apollo, try moving the cover. This is so cool! Thank you. As you can see, the cupboard was a problem. At the time of the murder, it had to have been as shown here. Now everything is in place to reconstruct the moment of the crime. Oh my! What's this?
But what is it now?
Look at the diagram. It appears we found yet another contradiction. What I believe to be the final contradiction, in fact. Huh? Oh dang! Notice something, Apollo? Our line of deduction is rapidly approaching its logical conclusion.
Now, Mr. Justice, please point out the new contradicting indicator. The victim, the killer, the witness, the second witness. The indicator is the contradiction.
Well, duh, you couldn't see through the window if the cupboard was there. Take that! About this cupboard. Are we all okay with assuming it was moved? Sure, why not? Well, if it was, something really doesn't fit. The cupboard would completely cover up the windows and the stairs!
Ugh.
That's right, someone standing outside wouldn't be able to see in. Someone like Mr. Gavin!
What did you say?
Oh? Is the coolest defense in the West losing his cool?
Don't expect me to play along with your little games, right?
It's only a game until someone gets killed, Mr. Gavin. And someone was, well, the window to that room was blocked by a cupboard. So, Mr. Gavin, perhaps you'd like to explain to the court. Exactly where did you witness the crime from?
Excuse me, Your Honor. Order. It's a court of law and I'll have order.
We just now received word from our investigative team at the Borscht Bowl Club. They've examined the cupboard in the hideout, Your Honor.
Oh? And what did they find?
Well, Your Honor, it turns out there's a secret passage behind it.
What?
Ah, yes. I believe I mentioned something of the sort before. This is one of the tricks to the room many of our regulars know about. I do remember him saying something about that now that he mentions it. The secret passage is a handy thing when you engage in illegal goings-ons, excuse me. Never know when you might need to duck away from the eyes of the law. So the room has a secret passage. Where does it go? The other side connects to the restaurant above. The underworld bosses could get away from the cops and enjoy a cold bowl of borscht, no doubt. Just like our killer. You see where our line of simple deductive reasoning has led us, Apollo? I see it, but I don't believe it. That girl wasn't kidding when she said I needed this trump card for the last hand. At the time of the murder, the window was blocked and the victim's hat was only off his head for a few minutes between Mr. Smith's murder and Mr. Wright's return from calling the cops. In other words, the only place anyone could have seen the victim's bald head was from inside the hideout. Well, Mr. Gavin, on, say something.
Oh, that's what really happened that night.
Actually, I think we can probably figure it out ourselves at this point. That night, for whatever reason, our killer had a date with Mr. Smith. A date with destiny. There he crouched, hidden in the secret passageway behind the cupboard, holding his breath, waiting for just the right moment. Then the chance came, and he took it. Why did you do that? Wait here, I'll get help. Miss Olga Orley, out cold, struck by Mr. Smith. But his time was soon to come. Mr. Wright went upstairs to call the cops, leaving Mr. Shady Smith alone in the hideout with the unconscious dealer. Then our killer stepped out from the passage and into the hideout. The victim must have heard the cupboard sliding aside. He wheeled his chair around to look, and after the deed was done, the criminal must have seen the blood on the card. He would have, of course, realized he needed to destroy the evidence. That single spot of blood told the whole story of the crime. Too bad for him he didn't linger any longer in the hideout that night. If he had, he might have noticed the cards on the floor. And the fact that they were all red! Ugh!
But it seems this trial has taken yet another turn. I'm truly sorry after seeing this outcome, Mr. Gavin.
Mr. Gavin?
Mr. Payne!
Yes, Your Honor?
The prosecution will continue to investigation. For Mr. Witness Wright, the defendant, he is hereby cleared of all suspicion.
What?
Believe me when I say that I don't believe this is happening, Mr. Gavin. But I'm afraid circumstances call for me to issue a warrant for her arrest immediately.
Oh, no need to apologize. I rather enjoyed myself. It's not every day you get to witness a legendary attorney's dirty tactics firsthand. Your point, Mr. Gavin? Frankly, Your Honor, I'm shocked that a person of your caliber would be taken in by such low-grade parlor tricks.
Excuse me?
The defendant is cleared of all suspicion. This is hardly the time for jokes, Your Honor. Mr. Wright hasn't proven anyone's guilt or innocence here. What he's done is use illegal evidence to put the blame on someone else. Not just anyone else, but me, his own defense attorney.
Illegal evidence?
Let me ask you, Mr. Gavin. Is there still any reason at present to suspect me of wrongdoing? Of course. This bottle, for instance. The bottle of grape juice Mr. Wright was drinking. How do you intend to explain away the fingerprints on the murder weapon? And not just any fingerprints, am I right, Mr. Payne? Actually, yes. The fingerprints on the bottom were upside down. I seem to recall this being an issue earlier. The court in this case demands an explanation. I can think of only one reason why one would hold a bottle upside down, and that is to hit someone with the bottom of the bottle. Well, Your Honor? See how the caught fish squirms at last. Well, Apollo? Yes? Your boss seems awfully concerned about this bottle still, but I'm sure you can come up with a suitable explanation, just like that. Yeah, just like what? Why would anyone grab a bottle upside down other than to... Don't let him trick you. Don't let him trick you into thinking his explanation is the only legitimate one. Is there really another? Take another look at the court record. I believe you'll find a simple answer there, in plain sight. Why don't you just say the answer in plain words?
Well, he has to deliver a verdict, but under this question, indeed. Mr. Justice?
Mr. Gavin said that this court in the case demands an explanation. Don't Don't worry, justice won't leave until justice is done.
I think the fingerprint killed him in the court. But I will see how to explain why the fingerprints on the bottle upside down.
I got it. I got it. Take that! It's actually easier to show you than explain, Your Honor. And that is where we're going to end things off for today. Episode's running a little bit long, so we're going to cut it short. I mean, what? Anyway, in the next episode of Apollo Justice. I got too caught up on everything. Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney, Turnabout Trump. We're going to find out exactly how Olga's picture explains away the fingerprints on the bottle. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys later.